right. I should do. Hello, everyone. Hello. Check, check. 1, 2. Testing. Hello, Gabman. Hello. Thanks for tuning in. Seems like there's a pattern. You're always the first one here, which is a good thing. Alright, so, audio check, video check, mic check, everything good? Check, check. Hello? Stream check. Hello, Victor. Hello. Hello. Okay, excellent, excellent, excellent. Right now we have apparently 7 viewers. We'll start in 1 minute. Hello, Toadrill. Hello. Welcome. Good. Hello, Steve. Ken. Hello, hello. Mic check, check, check. Everything good? Everything good? Today may be one of the most dangerous exercises of them all. If one of the most dangerous exercises of them all. Yes, we're going to do 2 things today. Yep, today is the most dangerous topic of them all, I believe. I would definitely think so. All right, so it is now 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Yes, welcome to another fantastic episode of Introduction to Security. I'm Ming Chow. I'm Associate Teaching Professor at Tufts University. It's my pleasure to do this on Thursdays. One really quick announcement that next Thursday there will be no telecast. There will be no telecast. There will be no episode next Thursday. March 25th, because we're going to be playing Capture the Flag. Yeah, so the security class will be playing Capture the Flag for 1 week, a little bit over a week. Lots and lots of fun. And the Capture the Flag game will be mostly, if not all, web-based and web security. And a lot of the game will have today's content. And today it's one of my favorite topics, and it is the oldest trick in the book. And today I'm going to talk about Sql Injection and also how to use a web proxy like Burp Suite. Okay, so before I get into the, oldest trick in the book, better known as Sql Injection, I want to do a really quick review. A really quick review of the OWASP Top 10 list. The OWASP Top 10 list, the Open Web Application Security Project. Yes, nonprofit at owasp.org. I just post a link in the chat. Okay. The OWASP Foundation has many, many chapters, international. Boston has a chapter where we're hosting right now. They have their monthly meetings every Wednesday. But their most famous project is this OWASP Top 10 list, which is a quote-unquote standard awareness document for developers and for web application security. It's not a perfect list, but it represents a broad consensus of the most critical security risks to web applications. And the last time this list was updated was in 2017. And here is the list of the top 10 web application security risk. Earlier this week, we already touched upon cross-site scripting and also operating system injection. But take a look at injection again. It sits at number 1. Injection flaws, such as in Sql, NoSQL, OS, LDAP injection occurs when untrusted data is sent to an interpreter as part of a command or a query. The attacker or hostile data can trick the interpreter into executing unintended commands or accessing data without proper authorization. Okay, so also, just a really quick review is the 2020 CWE list of top 25 most dangerous software weaknesses. And here on this list, cross-site scripting is number 1, but also at number 6 is the improper neutralization of special elements used in an SQL command, Sql Injection. Okay, so now you're seeing a pattern here. You're seeing Sql Injection and cross-site scripting listed in multiple lists. But the focus and the attention that we really got to focus on is this thing known as Sql Injection. So here is one of my favorite reads. It's really called the oldest trick in the book. Sql Injection, and this was a really nice article on Vice. Okay. Want to thank Joe Cox for writing this article. This was written over 5 years ago, and the skinny is, over 15 years after it was publicly disclosed, Sql Injection is still the number 1 threat to websites. Okay? Here it is. So here's a nice, how deadly it is. There are just way too many cases to list, how too many instances to list of where data is stolen or dumped. Here's an example from the World Health Organization, from the Wall Street Journal, federal agencies. The attack that was used, Sql Injection. Okay? And it is still like right up there, if not number 1. Okay? So what is Sql Injection? The lay definition I like to explain Sql Injection as this. Sql Injection gives you access to data that you should not have access to. I repeat, what Sql Injection is an attack or vulnerability that gives you access that you should not have access to data that you should not have access to. There, full stop. If not all the data that you should not have access to. Okay? Using Sql Injection, you can dump an entire database. That means you can download hundreds, thousands, if not even millions of records. And that's why a lot of data breaches still happen up to this day. Is it happening? Does Sql Injection still happen? The answer is, well, it happened like a week ago, and I'll show you that, and I'll show you an example later on. So here is, okay, how and why Sql Injection happened. So now I'm going to turn over to a board. I'm going to turn over to give you a little tutorial. Let's say we have a database table called users. Users have 2 fields. The database table users have 2 fields, login and password. Here we have a database table of 3 users, Nick, Carol, and Kate, and their corresponding password. So we have one database table with 3 records. Okay? So to do a query on this database table, and this database is written in SQL. The select statement, it's called a select command, is used to query a database table in the structured query language. And it is in the format of line number 12 right here. As you can see, okay. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3 variables here. Let's assume we have 3 variables. $login for the login, $password for the password, which is both of these are user input, and $result, which is a result of the query select star, which means select everything from users, where login equals single quote, some placeholder for now, single quote, and password equals single quote, placeholder, single quote, semicolon. So what this select statement does, on line number 12 is, okay, get me all the records from the database table called users where the login equals something and the password equals something. Okay. So now let's play around. So let's say login is Nick, and let's say password is lobster. So let's say $login equals Nick and $password equals lobster. And that's what the user typed in. So let's do some plugging and chugging now. So let's replace these 2 placeholders. By the way, they should be login and password. Yes, we all love the rules. Soon. Okay, let's replace the $login with Nick and the $password with lobster. So now we have this statement that reads, select star from users where login equals Nick and password equals lobster, where Nick and lobster are inside of single quotes. Is this statement grammatically correct? Yes, this statement is grammatically correct. There's no syntax errors at all. Absolutely no syntax errors at all. So let's say, from the users table, get me all the records where login equals Nick and password equals lobster. Nick and lobster are enclosed inside single quotes. But if you take a look at the database table here, there is a login called Nick. There is a record with the login Nick right here. But the problem is, and the password equals lobster. But we have a record called Nick, but the password is not lobster. We have a record called lobster with a password equals lobster, but that belongs to Carol. So in this case, while the SQL statement is grammatically correct, it's not going to return anything because result is going to be nothing, because we need to have where login equals Nick and the password equals lobster. That both statements have to be true. So it's not going to return anything. Okay? So let's go back for a second. Okay? So now let's do another example. Let login equals Kate and password equals carrots. Okay? So let $login equals Kate and let $password equals carrots. So now we're going to do plug and chug. We're going to just do a plug and chug. Replace login with Kate and replace $password with carrots. So now the question is this line number 12, is that SQL command, is that SQL statement grammatically correct? And the answer is yes, there are no syntax errors. No syntax errors at all. So this is select star from users where login equals Kate and password equals carrots, where Kate and carrots are enclosed inside single quotes. No syntax errors at all. It's going to work. Will it return any results? And the answer is it is going to return some results because there actually is a record in the users table where the login is Kate and the password is carrots. So what $result will be one record, one row, right there. So $result is going to have something in it, one record, because there is a record in users where the login is Kate and the password is carrots. Pretty nice. Okay, so that's basic SQL. But let's do something a little bit more interesting. So instead of Kate and carrots, let's say let login equal Shack. And the password, in this case $password, equals O'Neill, where there is an apostrophe, a single quote, between the capital O and the capital N. All right, so now let's do plug and chug. So let's replace $login with Shack, and the $password, let's replace that with O'Neill. Interesting. So, okay, so I see escape character, no escape character at all. No escape character at all being used. And I also see that is a yikes. So why is there a yikes here? What is the problem? What is the problem with the statement, with the SQL statement, line number 12? What's the problem? Something is not quite right here. What is the problem? Is the problem here? Or is the problem here? And the problem is, this statement is asking if the password equals okay. And so Steverton said there is an extra apostrophe. Okay? And so the problem with statement with number 12 is, so the question is, is there a problem? The answer is yes, there is. And the problem is there is a syntax error here. Select star from users where login equals Shack. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But this is where the problem happens. And password equal single quote O single quote. That part looks okay so far. But then we have capital N, lowercase e, lowercase a, lowercase l, and then a single quote at the end. Where now we have a syntax problem that is specifically, we have a mismatch of single quotes here. There should be another single quote here if this statement is to be correct. But no, there is an odd number of single quotes here. Okay, so there is a syntax error on this SQL command because we have an extra single quote in the end. And no, we are not escaping this single quote in the middle here. If we escape it, okay, if it was O/Neil, okay, that would be a little bit of a different story, something like that. But that's a little bit of a different story. But here is not only a syntax error. We not only have a syntax error here with an extra apostrophe, we also have an opportunity here to do some damage, to actually do some very interesting behavior. So the question is, can you just use double quote to differentiate? And the answer is, historically speaking, is a very good question. In the past, strings, okay, in the past, for the longest time, single quotes were used for strings, not double quotes. I think that has a little bit changed now, But the big problem is that single quote mark. And for years, single quotes have been used for strings in SQL. So it's a very, very good question. So single quotes are used for strings in SQL. But even if you have double quotes, that will also lead to a very similar problem as well, too. But yeah, historically speaking, single quotes have been used. Very, very good question. So let's go back for a second. Now I'm going to reset everything back to the original. Okay, so I said, all right, because there is an interesting issue with single quotes here, is it possible that we can actually make some very, very interesting imports where the result will, well, bring back everything and everything from the database table users? Is it why certain passwords don't allow for special characters? Yes, that is actually a reason why, especially for a lot of legacy systems. Yes, that is something that I have actually heard in the past with legacy systems. That's because special characters throw off um, the command, the SQL command, the queries. Okay, interesting. Is it possible to actually create inputs, the craft inputs from a user where the query and the end behavior will result in returning every record in the database table users? Okay, so in this case, let's let login equal A, or let's say 3A's, whatever. But let's use the password as a single quote space or single quote one single quote equals single quote one single quote. Let's do that. So now let's do a plug and chug. Replace $login with 3A's. And let's replace $password with this mess. So the question now is, we just did a plug and chug. Is this statement grammatically correct? Is there a syntax error here still? The answer is, well, let's take a look. Select star from users where login equals AAA inside single quotes. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. And password equals single quote a single quote space or space single quote one single quote equals single quote one single quote and then an ending single quote. The answer is no, this is not correct. This won't work because there is a syntax error here. That is another, again, we have another incident here of an extraneous single quote right here. So there's a syntax error here. But what if I did this? What if I removed the last single quote in $password? Now, plug and chug again. Replace $login with AAA and replace $password with this mess right here. Okay. Select star from users where login equals single quote AAA single quote and password equals single quote A single quote space or space single quote one single quote equal single quote one single quote. Is there a syntax error here now? I don't think so. There is none. The single quote matches. The single quote matches. But what is the behavior of this statement? Okay, the behavior of this statement is now like this. Select star from users where login equals AAA and password equals A, or single quote one, single quote equals single one, single quote one, single quote. Remember, the operator or is actually not only a keyword, but is also an operator in the structured query language, SQL, as with and. So now let's do the math, where login equals AAA. That could be true or false. Let's forget what's on our database. Even take the database table out. Forget what's in the database table. Login equals AAA, that could be true or false. It doesn't matter. And password equals A, that could be true or false. But then this part right here, or single quote one, single quote equals single quote one, single quote. Wait a minute. This reads as, well, the last time I checked, and in any case, 1 equals 1. Even single quote 1, single quote equals single quote 1, single quote. Logically speaking, this is always going to be true. This end part of the statement is always going to be evaluated to true. So if you read the entire statement using Booleans, you'll have true or false and true or false. Let's say this is false and false. False and false is going to be false. But what is false or true? True. Even if this whole part was true, what is true or true? That's always going to be true. So regardless, this statement is always going to evaluate as true. Hence, all the records from the database here, all the records, Nick, Cal, and Kate, will be in the result. Can you put parentheses around this to show order of operation for Boolean? Yes, you can do that as well too, but in this case, it's kind of a moot point. We actually don't need it because of the end statement is going to be false or true. It's going to be false or true, true, true or true, true. So you can do like parentheses. Can you do it? Can you do it right now? I mean, I could, but to make it more clear, yeah, I mean, everything reads from left to right. Everything reads from left to right. So whatever and whatever, or this last statement ends it, which is true. Oh, so you want me to do it out? So select from users where, well, basically this also goes down to what's the V? I was going to read as, let's say, false, and either can just make something up, or true. There you go. That's a good question. The SQL commands can be, it's not case sensitive. Yep, keywords, not case sensitive at all. I mean, even if it's X and Y. So yeah, if it's X and Y, yeah, that. Left to right, left to right, left to right, good question. So whatever this is going to be, whether it's false, whether the result of this is false or true, whatever it is, and then you have this part, or true, it's always, I mean, the statement is always going to be true. So it's going to dump all the records in the database table called users. Why is that? Well, because of that single quote mark right here, as we have done. Okay? All right, so now you get the gist. You have an understanding of how how and why SQL injection happens. Okay? Now you have an understanding of how and why SQL injection happened because of mixing, of mixing code and also imports in a SQL statement. So now you have an understanding of how and why this works. Let's do this in real practice. Let's actually do an example. Let's actually have you practice dumping a database using SQL injection. Okay? So, another quick review. Does it have anything about single quotes in here? SQL injection was first documented by Rainforest Puppy. Structured query language is a programming used to manage databases. In essence, when a database needs to call up a piece of information from a database, they either process it or present it to a user. Have found that typing certain commands will force, here it is, but Rainforest Puppy, that's his name, Jeff Forrester, that was his hacker handle, had found that typing certain commands would force a server to reveal information stored on it. People could possibly piggyback SQL commands. And here it is. So now let's actually do one out. And I want to present to you we're going to use an instance of the damn vulnerable web application. Damn vulnerable web application is a PHP MySQL application that is, well, damn vulnerable. Its main goals are to be an aid for security professionals to test their skills in a legal environment. Now, the source code of the damn vulnerable web application is available on GitHub, and it did say that do not upload it to your hosting provider's public HTML or to any internet-facing server, as they will be compromised. I'm going to break that rule. And the reason why I'm going to break that rule is because of accessibility. So if the public wants to play and learn, which is like everyone here. So I have an instance of the damn vulnerable web application up and running. You can do HTTP or HTTPS 35.222.61.37/DVWA. Here, I'll just paste it on the chat, and you can follow along. And we don't need SQL injection to break in. The username is well known as admin. And the password is password, all in lowercase. Okay? So that is admin. Admin, all in lowercase, is the username, and the password is password, whole word, all in lowercase. We're logged in. Okay, sounds good. Welcome to the damn vulnerable web application. And it has a whole bunch of exercises here. Brute force, command injection, which we did on Tuesday, and Zoom. File inclusion, file upload, SQL injection, cross-site scripting. Okay, before that, I want to reset the database to just make sure that there is no funny business. But the exercise that, of course, now we want to use is the Sql Injection Exercise. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. Make sure you are logged in first. Okay, make sure you are logged in. And let's do the SQL injection exercise here. Find the SQL injection vulnerability. So your goal is to, dump all the records in a database. I repeat, your job is to use SQL injection and to dump all the records in the database. Okay, so while you're working on that, I'll give you one hint. Let's say user ID is 99. No record that is 99. What happened if the user ID is 1? Ooh. ID is 1. That brought up something. Okay. What about if the ID is 2? Ooh, interesting. Alright, this is nice, but I want to get all the records. I'll give you a hint. Let's go to the view source. Here is the source code for the page, and that right there is your hint. $ID is your entry. Can everyone here, can you dump the entire database? Can you dump the entire thing? Okay, so if you look at the source code for this page, it says selects first name, last name from users where user underscore ID equals single quote $ID, where $ID is the number that you type in, single quote. Okay, so we have a single quote problem here. What if you did this? What if you did ID equals A, B? Okay, that's not going to work. What happens if you do B? Let's blow this up. B, single quote, or space, single quote, 1, single quote, equals, single quote, 1, single quote. I'm going to make a copy of this. I hit to submit. Okay, so we have a problem here. You have an error in your SQL syntax. Recheck the manual that corresponds to your MariaDB. So here is one thing I've learned back in the ye good old days. One of the ye good old days is, if you see error messages, if you disclose error messages like this to the user, it is not a good thing, because now you actually see an error message with right syntax and this thing. It's almost clear that there is an injection problem, or that this page is vulnerable to injection. Disclosing errors like that to the user, not good. But what happened if, of course, I remove that last single quote, hits the submit, bang. Yeah, I can also get them each by individually entering one. Okay, hold on. You can also get them each individually by entering numbers 1 to 5 as the IDs. Okay, you can do that, but what happens if there's a million records? You're not going to go and just enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yada yada, all the way down to 1,000. You don't want to do that. You know, if you do the SQL injection way, you do a SQL injection, you just dump everything onto the page. Okay? Interesting. So now this is Sql Injection 101. This one has a couple of problems because 1, there is SQL injection, but 2, also, if you have a syntax, if you do a syntax error by having an extra single quote, you're going to spit out an error on the page, which is almost a dead giveaway. Hey, there's a SQL injection happening on this page. Okay? So that's nice. Okay, so where do you go from here? So now you know what SQL injection is, give you access to all the data that you shouldn't have access to. You know how to do a SQL injection, you know why it happens. You want a little more practice? Well, this is the lab, the infamous lab number 7 for the course. If you just go to the IP address 35.222.61.37, break into the site. So now, using what you've learned, break into the site. Literally, seriously, bypass the authentication, bypass the login, bypass the password, Okay, no brute force necessary. Using everything that you've learned, okay, gain access to this website. That's it. If you paid attention, it should take you like a minute or two to just get in. Yeah, can you repeat that command again? Sure. Sure, if I want to repeat that command again, so in this stage I can enter number 1. Okay, I can enter A, whatever it is. You can do A, single quote, or, okay, hold on, A, single quote, space, or, space, single quote, 1, single quote, equals, single quote, 1. That's it. Okay, please keep it down. Do not reveal the message of the page. So I'm going to hit the payload. The Twitch chat. Really. Okay, keep it down. Don't put the answers on. So that's what I use for the ID. Okay, wait a minute. So we just did Sql Injection. This is the 7th lab in my security class. Break into the website. Go for it, break in. Bypass the authentication. By the way, the quote looks really messed. The single quote looks messed up on Twitch. So wait a minute. So you're asking, is this stuff really happening up to this day? Does this stuff still happen to the at the moment? I mean, here we are in the year 2021. The answer is yes. Recently on the news, rookie coding mistake. This was from earlier this month. Rookie coding mistake prior to Gab hat came from the site CTO. And I'm going to post that link. And here it is. Over the weekend, word emerged on a hacker breach for website Gab and downloaded 70 gigabytes of data by exploiting a garden variety security nut flaw known as Sql Injection. Here it is. A quick review of Gab says, here it is, was introduced by the company chief technology officer. There you go. So here, interestingly enough, how you defend against Sql injection is very much like how you defend any injection attack. Sanitize user input. Never trust user input. Never ever trust user input. And for Sql, there's also something else, even more that you can also do, which is something called parameterized queries, which I'll get to in a bit. Okay, so the way you defend against Sql injection or cross-site scripting or any injection attack on the OAuth top 10 is to never trust user input. Certainly sanitize user input. Okay? All right, so can we do another example? I'm sure you're all looking forward if you want to do another Sql injection example. Yeah, why not? Let's do another Sql injection example. Let's go back to the site. Here it is. This is the lab. But I recently, a bunch of months ago, I published a project called the Vulnerable Voter Database. Interesting. So I built this. I did an update to this 2 months ago. So I created this project called the Vulnerable Voter Database, and the purpose of this is to demonstrate what happened when a voter database, including web forms, are not developed well and have vulnerabilities. This is on GitHub. Best way to do this is to run this on Docker. Yeah, I even have the instructions on how to actually download how you run this on Docker container. And then the reference is Sql injection is tied to election commission breach. Okay. And this article was written December 2017. And sadly, this is how a lot of databases are dumped and breached by way of SQL injection. Yep. Is the SQL injection mentioned on here? Yep, here it is. Even this one. Even this article. July of 2016, via hacking technique called SQL injection. Name, addresses, birth, driver's license, partial social security numbers, photo information, all dumped by way of SQL injection. Yes. Okay, actually I have an instance of the deliberately vulnerable voter database on the system as well. I'll post a link. All right, folks, dump. Here it is. This is all fake Find My Voter. This is a fake Find My Voter registration status. Want to give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to the fine folks at Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Election Commission for helping me with this. Actually, that was nice. We had a nice call. And what I want you to do is to dump the entire database. All fake information. Okay? Dump all of the information on this voter registration database. I'm going to type something. Okay, I'm going to type B. You notice that, interesting, date of birth, month, day, and year are all in pull-down menus. Zip code. Interesting. Zip code is hard-coded. It's like, that's it. I can't go for more than 5 characters. Go back. Really? Submit query. Oh, check the box. No results. Interesting. Here I am on this fine fake My Voter registration page. And it seems on premise it looks secure. Date of birth, month, date of birth, day, date of birth, year are all pull-down menus. That's nice. And I have to enter 5 digits or 5 characters for the zip code. Here's the thing. Anytime you actually have client-side validation that also include pull-down menus, you can still modify it. Okay? Now, zip code is only 5 characters long. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Okay, I can only do 5 characters max. But is there a way that I can go much deeper? Is there a way that I can actually go beyond 5 characters? Or change the date of birth year to be something like the 1800s? And the answer is yes, there is. There is a way to bypass all the client-side validations. Absolutely. Or you can do an inspect element. So I want to give a quick review of how the web works. So how the web works is this nice picture here. How the web works is the hypertext transfer protocol, the request response model. So your web browser makes a direct connection. When you actually, submit a form or type in a URL and hit the enter key, it's going to make a direct HTTP request to the web server. In this case is 35.222.61.37. And then the server at 35.222.61.37 will give you back the response. What if you did this? instead of your web browser, making a direct connection to the web server, and then get back, and then the web server give you back the response, what if you had like something in the middle, something called a proxy that intercepts all the requests. Then you can do any modifications that you want to it, and then that middle, this thing, that thing in the middle, sends it to the server. I repeat, what happens if you have something in the middle called a proxy? A proxy that intercepts your request. Then you can actually do any modifications that you want to the request, and then the proxy sends the request off to the web server, and the web server sends you back the response. So, one of the most important tools for doing web application security is called a web proxy. A web proxy intercepts HTTP requests, and then you can do any sort of manual manipulation on like the request. That also includes like data that you want to run for date of birth, month, day, year, zip code. You can do any modification that you want, make changes, then send it off to the web server, bypassing all of the validation. You don't need to be restricted to any of these date of birth month, or these date of birth days, or the year of birth, or even 5 characters for the zip code. I want to introduce to you to the idea of a web proxy. One of the most popular web proxy software used for security is called Burp. Burp Suite. B-U-R-P. Burp Suite is an application security testing software created by the fine folks at Portswigger. It's a Java-based application. Been years. I mean, we use this for years. There is a free version, and there is also what they call community version, and also a paid version. So Burp Suite is used for application security testing. Okay, the paid version of Burp Suite also includes scanners, scanning tools, really, really good stuff for do automated web vulnerability scanning. Okay, oh my God. Burp Suite, one of the most popular, most quintessential products. Oh, you're missing out. Here. Well, I'm glad I'm introducing you to Burp Suite. Really, really cool. It's literally a game changer for web application developers. Okay, it can be used as the paid version to scan vulnerabilities and even do penetration tests to actually break in as well too. And the products are, go to the Burp Suite. If you go to products and you go to Burp Suite Community Edition, this is the best manual. It's going to give you the very basic tool to start web security testing. That also includes the web proxy. Okay. So the community is a feature-limited set of tools for exploring web security. Proxy your HTTPS or HTTP traffic, edit and repeat requests, decode data, and more. Get the latest version here. Platform independent. You can download a community edition for Mac, Linux, Windows, whatever it is. I want to go back. Can I actually go? Here it is. Can I actually remove the... Okay, let's go down for a second. Burp Community Edition, a manual testing for beginners and hobbyists. Okay, Burp Community Edition makes the basics of web security available to everyone to nurture the next generation of security professionals. And that's all they got. Do they have any more details? Any more details on Burp? Anyway, I guess not. There used to be a site that says how to use a product. They have great documentation as well too. Oh, here it is. Look at this. Vulnerabilities. They have about Sql Injection as well too. Let's see what happens. That's what we're doing today. In this section, we'll explain what SQL injection is, give you examples, yada, yada, yada. Well, at any rate, so now, the SQL injection is a web security vulnerability that allows attacker to interfere with queries that an application makes to a database. It generally allows an attacker to view data that they're not normally supposed to, well, it's exactly what it said, are not normally able to retrieve. This may include data belonging to other users. Okay. We're going to come back to this. But I want to actually make a copy of the URL for the deliberately vulnerable voter database. And I'm going to open up Burp Suite. I don't need this anymore. Quit out of Visual Studio Code. I'm going to launch my terminal. And I use the Java-based version of Burp. So I just need to type Burp Suite on my command line. In fact, if you have Kali Linux, Burp Suite is one of the essential tools that is already installed. So if you have Kali Linux, Burp Suite is already installed for you. And how you would run Burp Suite on Kali Linux is to type in Burp Suite. Let me get this going up. Alright, so it says your temporary directory can now contain the following folders. Okay, whatever, I'm just going to delete them, I don't care. You're going to get to say, welcome to Burp Suite Community Edition, and here's the option to create a project. Well, I'm going to create a temporary project. I'll use the default, and then we hit start. Now, welcome to Burp Suite. Welcome to Burp Suite. And Burp Suite, you can see we're using the Community Edition, but the Pro version of Burp Suite, you can do OS command injection, SQL injection, automated scanning. You can do a lot of automated scanning, cross-site scripting, and all that stuff. Now, how do you use this thing? How we use Burp Suite, for our purposes for today, the most important manual testing tool is the proxy, the middleman. So go to the tab called Proxy here. And you can do interception, HTTP, you can see HTTP history, WebSocket history, and a whole bunch of other options. By default, when you open up Burp Suite, it's going to run a local server on your computer at port 8080. So you can actually hook up any web browser or your system to Burp Suite if you want. One of the really nice changes lately to Burp Suite is now it contains an embedded web browser. So there is no need to configure your proxy settings on your web browser on your system. It is really cool. So all you need to do now is, you don't need to do much setup. All you need to do is click on Open Browser or Open the Browser button. And you will see a version of Chromium pop up built in to Burp Suite. Really nice. So you don't have to use your own version. You don't have to use your version of Firefox or Google Chrome, whatever. Here it is, pretty nice. It's nice and clean Chromium. They have tutorials, they have documentation. But let's type in the URL for the deliberately vulnerable voter database at http://35.222.61.37/voterdb. I'm going to hit enter and watch what happens. So now, instead of making it, because I'm using a web proxy, I'm using Burp Suite, when I hit the enter key, all the requests will be intercepted by Burp. And then you can see that because you notice that intercept is on. So all of my web requests on Chromium, because this is built into Burp Suite, is now going to be intercepted by Burp. So watch what happens. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm not going to see a web page right away, yet. I see a hanging cursor, a hanging icon here in my web browser tab, and now I have an option. I see the HTTP request header that is, that was made by Chromium. That was originally, if I didn't have Burp running, it would actually directly communicate to the server at 35.222.61.37. Here I see the HTTP request header, all of this stuff here. I see the HTTP GET command, I see the path, I see the host IP address, I see the user agent, which is details about my web browser. Now I can either choose now what do I do next. I can choose to forward the request or drop it. If I forward it, watch what happens. Boom, I get my fake find my voter database, find my voter registration status. Stuff like Google APIs, I can drop this. I don't need this. This doesn't affect my page. All right. So now I want to show you what happens if I type in anything. A, B, I'm going to say March 18. Oh, what? 2004. Zip code is 12345, whatever, and I'm going to check the box off. Now, when I hit the submit button, all of the form data is not going to be sent directly to 35.222.61.37. All of the information that I type in will be intercepted by Burp Suite. Let me actually make the window a little smaller. Let me do it side by side here. Let me do a side by side. Ah, here we go. Nice side by side here. You can see. So I have Burp Suite running on the left, my web browser, Chromium web browser that is part of Burp running on the right. So I'm going to hit submit. Notice I got a hanging circle here, waiting for something. Burp, the proxy, intercepted the request. Notice this is an HTTP post request because we're typing in data from a form, on a form to be sent to a web server somewhere. Host IP, this is all the HTTP header, all of this. This is the request header. This is the request body, line number 15. And notice it also intercepted everything I typed in. First underscore name is A, last underscore name is B, date of birth month is 3, date of birth day is 18, day of birth year is 2004, the zip code, and the understand is on. Now watch what happens. I could either drop the request or forward it. Let's say if I drop the request, what happens? Error, the request was dropped by the user. Nice. Let's do this again. So I just hit the enter key on the URL, I'm going to hit forward. Let's do this all over again. A, B, March 18, 2004. Check the box off, hit submit. When I hit the submit button, I see the HTTP request header and body. What I'm going to do next is I am going to now in Burp I can change all the entries. I can change the date of birth year to be 2021. I can change the zip code to be much longer than 5 characters long, such as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I made my changes. So now the server, which is 35.2222.61.37, it will receive first name is A, last name is B, date of birth month is 3, date of birth day is 18, date of birth year is 2021, which wasn't an option on the pull down. Zip code is much longer than 5 characters long. I'm going to forward the request. No errors. It was out. So far so good. Okay, no errors, no nothing. Let's do this again. But this time, let's do SQL injection so it brings back all the result, all the data in this fake Find My Voter registration database system. I'm just going to say whatever I want. Whatever. I make sure to check the box off, hit submit. All right. So what field are we going to SQL inject? Well, it's going to be something, but because I'm going to pick zip code, because zip code is one of the last fields. So instead of the 5 A's, I just remove this on burp, and I just do, well, my standard SQL injection payload. A single quote space or space single quote 1 single quote equals single quote 1, no closing single quote. So now the server, when I hit forward, the server will get whatever first and whatever, but the zip code is going to contain a SQL injection payload with a single quote space or single quote, a single quote space or single quote, space single quote, 1 single quote equals 1 single quote, no closing single quote. Hit the forward. $100,000 records. Yep. You can do that well with just a web browser inspector text. Okay, sure, you can say that. But what Burp Suite will also allow you to do, yeah, for this kind of stuff, Burp Suite, well, you can do this with a web browser, but what really makes nice Burp is you can actually see your HTTP history. You can also see, there's a whole bunch. Configure the details of the target for, you can even start conduct an attack. Automated attack. This is all free. You can also do intruder. You can do payload position. You can configure the payload position where payload will be inserted into the base request. The attack type actually determines the way in which payloads are assigned to. So the other thing is, yes, you did Burp by default comes with a proxy, but you can also use Burp Suite to actually automate like absolute blast, like web forms as well too. So for example, if you want to break into a website with a username and password, and you want to automate a whole bunch of username and a whole bunch of password combinations to try, you can use the intruder in Burp. Okay. Are there any cool SQL injection tricks that we should know besides standard payload, or we have just one? Yeah, sure. I can tell you a whole bunch of things. Let me give you 3 other things. I don't need this anymore. Hold on. Yeah, I can answer that question. Like, are there any other cool SQL injection tricks that we should know besides the standard? Yeah, sure. I'll quit out of Burp. I don't need that anymore. But what I want to show is a couple of things. OWASP SQL injection cheat sheet. SQL injection prevention. I'll show you this. Oh, that's a prevention cheat sheet. There's a whole bunch of how about this one? There's a whole bunch of like unions and operators and sub-select statements. There's a lot. How about a Kunix? I know these guys. Oh. Sql Injection Cheat Sheet, Web Security Academy. This was actually good because I was going to mention this anyway. There you go. Here you go. I should have brought that up first. Sql Injection Cheat Sheet. String concatenation, substrings, comments, database version, database contents, conditional errors. Someone was mentioning about parentheses, batch queries, time delays, conditional delay, DNS lookups, DNS lookup with data exfiltration. Okay, there's a lot here in this cheat sheet. Very important that I bring this up now because I'm here on this site. Portswigger, who also makes Burp Suite, also have a Web Security Academy, which is a free resource. It's a nice free playground, so you can learn things such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and any web security attacks. They have a whole bunch of learning labs. So if you're interested in this stuff, if you want to learn more about, if you want to do more cross-site scripting, more SQL injection stuff, they got a whole bunch of labs here. Logic vulnerabilities. Yeah, SQL injection, there's 16 labs here. Examining the database. Yeah. So, yeah, so what you want to do is sign up for an account, log in, and then you can have a whole bunch of labs that you can play with. Nice free learning resource from Portswigger. Thank you so much to Portswigger for the Web Security Academy. They have a whole bunch of labs, whole bunch of, learning material. Really good stuff. Now, there is another thing I want to bring up because of that question. Are there any other cool SQL injection tricks? Go back to that article on the history of SQL injection, and there should be a mentioning of one of my favorite security tools called Sql Map. Sql Map is free and open source. It is also part of Kali Linux, part of the basic installation, part of the default installation. It is an automated tool to, automate SQL injection. SqlMap.org. Interestingly enough, SQL Map uses HTTP. SQL Map, so if you don't want to, believe me, some of the payloads are really, really, really complicated. What Sql Map does is an open source penetration tool that automates the process of finding, of detecting and exploiting. Yes, you can also use Sql Map to dump databases as well, to exploit SQL injection flaws and taking over database servers. It comes with a powerful detection engine. It is one of my favorites, written in Python. You can hammer any like SQL-based databases from MySQL, Postgres, Oracle. Free, open source. It's really, really good. The source code is on GitHub. They have a demo here. This, let me tell you, SQL Map really, really does come in handy. Especially may come in handy for the capture the flag game. Here's a project on GitHub. Open source penetration testing tool. One last thing I want to mention. What kind of vulnerabilities have been found in standard MB? Oh boy. Yeah, quite a bit. Oh boy, if you do Rail SQL injection vulnerabilities, look at the CVEs. Look at the common vulnerabilities and enumeration. Lots and lots of CVEs. Django, same thing. Yep, SQL injection had definitely been found even on active record on Ruby on Rails. The one last thing I do want to mention is about prevention of SQL injection. One of the most obvious answer is, you got to sanitize user input. But there is also another way to prevent SQL injection, which is kind of input valid, which isn't sanitizing inputs and stripping out special characters, but it's called prepared statements, all called variable binding. So what are prepared statements? Prepared statements, I think, of variable holders. CVE, this was what was it? I think it was last week. cve.miter.org. CVE, what it is a dictionary of identification and vulnerabilities, particular vulnerabilities with a product. So, for example, a particular type of vulnerability in Ruby on Rails. So if I do a search CVE list, like Ruby on Rails, so you have a CVE ID, which is CVE dash the year dash some sequential number, and description of the vulnerability. And as you can see, there's a number of vulnerabilities in Ruby on Rails. Okay, but I want to go back and talk about preventing SQL injection. The root of SQL injection problem is the mixing of code and data. In fact, our SQL query is a legitimate program. So we've done something like this. This is exactly what we've been doing all day, where the code is, we'll produce the sequence, drop table users. So this will drop the database table users. Now, how prepared statement works is called variable binding. Prepared statements, they don't alter the program, remains intact. So we're sending a program to the server first. So the first thing is you will prepare a SQL query, and anything that is user input will have a question mark. So now where the data is substituted by some variable called a parameter or a placeholder. Notice that the same exact query is sent to the server without any data in it. And then we're sending that data with that second request, essentially separated from the query itself. So you're not mixing any code and data. So here it is, db.execute, which is to execute this statement, but replace the question mark with $data. So it can't alter our program and do any harm. Even if your data contain like single quotes, special characters, and whatever, it is not going to be part of the SQL operation. So really, nowadays, I think if you're using PHP, you're forced to use prepared statements, which is a good thing. Frameworks such as Java, Ruby on Rails, Django, they all have either like a like what is that thing called? Not active record, like object relational mapping, ORM. That does exactly what this is, prepared statements. So you never mix code and data. Like whatever you type in is never going to be part of like the SQL statement or the SQL command. Okay, so posted that Stack Overflow. Query builder. I forgot what language that was for. It's been a while since I've done any programming. So at any rate, preventing SQL injection and preventing any lots of web vulnerabilities is based on input validation. Don't trust the user input. Never trust the user input. Never trust the user input. Sanitize. What it really boils down to. And so now you know the oldest trick in the book. You know about SQL injection. You know how deadly it can be. That it can just dump all the data that you should not have access to. And an extra bonus today, you also learned about web proxies and burp. That's all I got for today. Right on the money time. All right, folks. Remember, there is no Twitch stream next week, next Thursday. Enjoy today. Someone drop your voter table? I don't know.